Hi there, and welcome to the Good Enough Battle Companies podcast. My name is Chris Piercy from Good Enough Scenery, not joined by Stephen from When I Can Hobby today, but instead joined by Val, who is one of the masterminds behind the community rules that we use to play. We're honoured to have him as a guest on here because I've been using his rules a whole bunch of time, and I'm really interested to hear what he's got to say about a whole different thing. So, how are you doing today, Val?
I'm doing all right, thanks, Chris. I'm really happy to be on the call and the channel. It's kind of an honor for myself because this is the first real feedback we've had from a fan about the entire edition so far.
That astounds me because I don't know if it's because Battle Companies just isn't as popular as the main game, and the main game isn't as popular as other things like 40K whatever. But I think that whenever I see anyone saying, "Oh yeah, I'm about to start a Battle Companies campaign," on one of the Facebook groups, like, dude, you've got to use the community rules because they are just so much better. And that's one of the reasons that we started the podcast. Is look, this is such a cool way of playing MESBG. Um, and if you just, it's a detriment to yourself if you're not using these rules because they're just, it's like laughable how much better they are. So
Yeah, so part of it is because loads of people end up on the Discord channel, and so normally when we hear feedback, it's from people on the Discord. So you kind of take it with a grain of salt. Oh yeah, this person's on the Discord. Of course, they're using our rules. We aren't sure how much it reaches out to the greater community.
okay, fair enough. I guess that makes sense. I mean, how did you become aware of the podcast then, out of interest?
So Kami, me and Kami are the two heads, for lack of a better term, of development for Unity Edition. Um, he came across your podcast earlier last week actually, and we both adore it already, and have
No,
listened to every episode
like
because we're sad.
just sit there and go, yes, we are wonderful. Yes, yes, keep the compliments coming.
I mean, it
No,
does help, but it's nice to hear that people actually enjoy our work.
I know it's difficult not to because I remember we were in the middle of a map-based campaign. I guess it must have been about a year ago to the day nearly, and we were about to start playing, and I brought up the Google Drive thing of the rules, and it was like, oh my god, 3.0, and I was just like, everyone's got like just, I'm not playing for a second. I need to see what's new about this thing, so I kind of just scroll through and just like, it's like, oh my god, new hero pass, oh my god, new companies. It's like just super cool. So yeah, I mean, like the main thing I want to ask you, I mean, it's obvious from my point of view because of I use the community rules, but what is it that made you go, hang on a minute, these just aren't right? The original rules, the original game book, you know, what made you go, we need to do something about this?
So I rejoined the hobby a few years back because I'd been out of practice with the game for a while. Wanted to get back into the swing of things, and I had seen original battle companies when it came up in White Dwarf in like 2003, 2004. So I've been with the hobby on and off for a long time. Um, and obviously on the Discord we had a group for it already. They'd already adapted a few of the rules. So where, for example, different companies have got different influence for reinforcements,
Hmm.
already a change that had been implemented because they'd already decided, yeah, elves are too powerful in vanilla. Uh, Rangers are too powerful. They've already been banned. So have done Harrow already been banned.
Yep.
And then we were playing a lot that year in 2021. And it got to the end of the year, and we're all like, well, okay, we're all really bored with the balance so far because everyone was had warriors, everyone had rangers, then you'd
Hmm.
have one general, one sorcerer, and no one had anything differently. So all companies ended up looking exactly the same. And
Yeah.
so we started looking at new paths, and then we were like, well, if we're adding new paths to the system, why don't we just redo the entire system? And it
Why
went
not
from
just?
there.
Yeah.
We had a lot of free time on our hands. It went from there. We're now at 3.0. Obviously, that came out last year. I'm not gonna lie, we're still working on tweaks. if you are a part of the Discord server, you can always have a look at the bottom in the Battle Company section. We are currently at this moment discussing changes to the paths again because we are sad, have nothing better to do, and also we just want to make everything as useful as everything else
Sure.
because there are still things which are more powerful or less powerful than others.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that when, with 3.0, you introduced the martyr and defender paths, and obviously you would have done some play testing and stuff. But it's very difficult to know long term over a whole bunch of campaigns whether it's balanced or not. Because until you've played, a lot of people have played a lot of games. You don't know. It's like, well, hang on a minute, that this thing isn't particularly useful, or that thing needs to be more
Yeah,
accessible, or whatever.
yeah.
So,
So obviously we have access to a drafting document ourselves. It's available on the Discord. You won't be able to find it elsewhere because it's more just so people could see where we've progressed, etc.
mm,
And just as an aside, I think one of the earlier changes we made was on Watchmen, which was one of the original paths we came up with.
mm,
Because I think it started as 8 paths, they went to 10 paths. I think we're now at 14 paths.
yeah.
But where how master is, we used to have you got a free torch and you could fend off with it.
Oh, nice.
And someone in the Discord was like, "We like the fend off rule, but we want to do more of a more of a like a defensive guy." And so from there was birthed like the entire path of the defender.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, are there going to be more paths? Like, can you tell me that, or have you?
We have no idea. It's
I have no idea.
part of the problem is you don't want to overwhelm people. 14
Yep.
is already quite a lot. But at the same time, if someone has a really good idea, we all really enjoy it, and we'll jump on it. Well, that's how we got Martyr and Defender in the first place. So I don't want to say, no, it's not on the cards ever. It's completely dependent on who comes up with what and if it looks good and works with the rest of them.
So can I throw an idea out there?
Go for it.
So what if there was something along the lines of a Grima type model? Um, so
Uh,
path of the spy. I don't know how it would work. I don't know how it would work exactly, but if they had, they got the Grima special rule as the 7. So with Grima, you set up within your pretending that you're on the other your opponent's side, and you just kind of get in the way and be a bit annoying. Um, just an idea to kind of throw out there. Someone pretending that they're
hey, it might end up in main like in the main game if that's what if someone comes up with a great way to implement it. Sure,
mm,
even if we don't implement it, the community edition rules are there for everyone to use, but you can always make your own adaptations on things. We're not going to say you have to do things our way. This is just what we would like to put out there, so it's more balanced for people.
yeah. I mean, myself and my friend Dave are playing. Well, we're going to do an Arnor Angmar campaign, and just facing off against each other. And one of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to have my leader as on Path of the Beast, and it's going to be one of the wargs that you get. But we're just going to just tweak and adapt the rules so it becomes more like Gulliver, like Terror of Angmar. So the double one will be a 6-inch fly or something like that, just so it creates something more.
More interesting as a dynamic,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, and I think that's the beautiful thing is that it's I think the community rules not only have they kind of made the game better, but they've also encouraged the idea of going, well, hang on a minute, why don't we try this? This could be fun. Rather than just going having the people that just go, no, these are the rules. This is exactly
I,
how you have to
I'm
play
pretty
them.
sure. I'm pretty sure I actually saw one of your posts where you had your. I think it must have been a Angmar company. And you had a warg hero called Mr. Sparkles or Mr. Chuckles or something.
Mr.
I think
Biscuits.
Mr. Biscuits. That's it. And I
Mr.
specifically
Biscuits.
stole the idea for my own Dolgodo company in the subsequent campaign we did on the Discord server. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
Love it. Yeah, Mr. Biscuits was my Dolgador leader. So he was he was on Path of the Beast and became pretty oh god, we'll discuss Dolgador in a future one, but their company special rule is Power of the Necromancer, which is avoid of wound on a
Right.
5+. Is it? Is that
Yeah, it's
yeah?
basically Super Fury for those of you who play the main game.
Yeah. So I remember in one game him saving 6 wounds with Power of the Necromancer. So I think he ended up having it took 8 or 9 wounds to kill him in the end with fate rolls and
You
everything. It
could,
was
yeah. So as someone who's obviously familiar with the edition rules, for those of you who want, you can also sort of cheat this a little bit and add the lucky talisman, because since that rule is like a fate rule, you can reroll fails.
yeah, love it. I mean, yeah, this is the sort of thing that you've shared by email a few different things which are just so interesting that I just like, oh my god, why didn't I think of that? So yeah, you saying about combining the lucky talisman with Path of the Martyr, it's just like, oh, duh.
To be fair, I have been working on this for like 3 years now. You'd
Yeah,
hope I know some of the gimmicks.
yeah, but at the same time, it's just like it. It's one of those things like once you know, it's like, oh, of course. Why wouldn't I do that? How stupid am I? But
That's why Marta seems a bit weak. We are
mm,
sort of looking at that and thinking, okay, might wise, they do still seem a bit slow because they can get up to 6, but they get it so slowly. We're
yeah, I mean,
discussing changing that slightly now, but
I'd
yeah,
say that
the
my feedback would be that having, so I think Might's still on a 10 as it is with all of them, isn't it? That if that
yeah,
was a 9, maybe something like that. I can't remember what's at 9, but yeah, if that was just slightly easier to get access to a good
it
chunk of
might work
life,
better.
that
Yeah.
might
So
work
the
better. But
reason for the paths being like that is it was I forget what we called it. It had a special name, but basically we wanted to make it so everyone got a unique special rule which defined the path on a 7. Everyone got the
mhm,
same stats on every roll, so you didn't have a company which, or a path rather, which was just growing a lot better than another path.
yeah,
Because anyone familiar with vanilla version of battle companies, I think generals get courage on a 7, which is just garbage.
yeah,
Compared to something like I think warriors in vanilla get fight on a 7. Now that doesn't sound so great, but if you can get the fight 6 a lot easier than getting to courage 6, which is what general gets, well, no wonder warriors were picked more than generals. That
yeah,
kind of thing is why we rebalanced everything.
yeah. So just to drill down on a question for just a second, because I was just wondering, and I've got you here, so I'm going to ask.
You
So
know, worries.
7 on general is lead by example, which is +1 to
Right.
courage to models within 6 inches. Does that work the same as a banner in terms of it
Yeah,
being
the
plus
general
to
is
your
within
own
60
courage?
years to himself. Yeah.
Okay, that's
I think that's how it works. Let me just read it. Yeah, it's friendly models. It's not other friendly models. I think we
okay.
changed that. It used to be other friendly models. So yeah, he
That's
improves himself.
that's good because so my Imrahil and my fiefdoms is uh, courage 5 off the bat, so that's always going to be a good thing. Um, cool. So in terms of in terms of where the community rules are going, I mean, you've shared a bit with me by email, but what's next for the community rules?
So as I've shared on email, we are still looking over the main rules, but they're more or less. I don't want to say set in stone, but we're pretty happy with where they are currently. Obviously, work will keep going on them. It is meant to be a living rule book more than a this is where we finish. But currently, we're working on a campaign supplement,
Hmm.
which is going to, for lack of a better term, collate all the Games Workshop created Battle Company campaigns. There are 4 of them. One was in the first edition version of Battle Company's rulebook, which I think that was released in 2016, 2017. It's fairly old. There's one in the second edition, which is the current one. For those of you who have the current book, so the first one's called Quest of Fauna. The second one is called Journey to the Blue Mountains, and then there were 2 in the White Dwarfs since the latest edition of Battle Companies came out. One is called The Lost Dwarven Ring, and the last, let me just pull up the supplement PDF we've got, is called Search for the Stone, which initially was an evil company's campaign. Although we're personally of the opinion that having a good or an evil company's campaign is a bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, anything can be very, very easily adapted, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we're also adding a way for you to design your own campaigns with sort of a guideline on how to do it. And in that, we've introduced our own campaign, which is sort of based on Barney's expedition into Moria, which
Hmm.
we're calling the Lost Expedition. Um, you can actually play this all via the tabletop simulator if you have it, because we have got all the maps up on there, and we're in the
Hmm.
process of moving all the rules from all our saved scenarios into the document itself. Well, this week actually, I've spent a couple of days this week so far, just transcribing all of the rules, the blurbs, the ratings, the starting positions, the reward tables, everything into the document. So work
Busy
is always
boy.
ongoing.
And we are ridiculously excited. And so you said this is looking like a June release. Is that about right, do you think?
I would hope we have finished it by June. Obviously, it's dependent on everyone's schedules.
Yeah.
No, none of us get paid for this. Obviously, it's completely dependent on when we all have free time. But me and Kami do want to try and get campaign supplement out this year, preferably by I reckon preferably by June. Um, if only because we wanted to get it out last year, and we forgot. So
Well, I told Stephen that there was a campaign supplement coming in June, and I'm not. If I say he squealed, that would probably be about the right description of his reaction. He was very, very excited, as I am as well. I think, um, yeah, I mean, I've been playing a kind of homebrew campaign of Defenders of Helm's Deep against Isengard with.
oh, that's absolutely great. We don't want to discourage this. We just wanted to make it easier for everyone to be able to say, how can I make, for example, a campaign from War and Rohan into a Battle Company's campaign? Well,
Yeah.
this is how we've done it. If you want to follow our guide, feel free. If not, and it works for you other ways, by all means, we're not going to say you're wrong because it's meant to be an edition for the community, not meant to be a definitive rule book.
And most of all, it's supposed to be fun. So,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's at the end of the day, we're grown humans rolling dice and moving plastic or metal models around. So let's not pretend it should be
Yeah.
anything else other than fun, because
Especially battle companies get so
especially
wacky and
battle.
wild.
Yeah, I mean, battle companies is just it is so much fun because you can get so involved with your reinforcement roles. You can get so involved with
Yeah,
your
I know what
characters
you
and
mean.
everything.
It's it's very easy to get attached to your company a lot more so than a regular army, I find.
Oh yeah, I mean, like
Although,
regular army, like your Boromir model dies, you're annoyed,
okay, cool, but
but
like
you
he'll
know
come
that
back at the
he's
end of the game.
yeah. End of the day, you pack your models away, you turn up again next week or the following day, and you bring him out again. Whereas, in Battlecom, it's like, yeah, he's back, but he's got a leg wound, or
Yeah,
he's
of course, the upsetting side of that is what happens when they die, and it's just like, oh bugger, now I've got to find a new guy to treasure.
yeah. So I
But
remember
that's part of the fun. So
with my Dolgador company, I my reinforcement rolls were just trash after trash after trash. Finally got a giant spider, and he permadeathed after one game.
don't worry about that, mate. I've it was a joke for the longest time. I kept running Dunland companies, and it's like, Val's using Dunland again. Watch him lose every game. What you know? Yeah, that Val's running Dunland. Val's losing every game, and all of his models keep dying. It's like, great. I could about keep myself on the 100 mark for the entire campaign. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's just no fun at all. Just ugh. Yeah, that's horrible.
It's stuff like that which is what inspired Against the Odds, for example. I was
Yeah.
being reamed and we're like, well, how can we help Val out without just throwing random things at him? Well, why don't we just actually improve what you get for being lower rating?
Yeah,
Well, cool. Against the odds arrives.
yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that with battle companies, with so few models on the table, that the original
Exponential
vanilla
loss.
ones,
Yeah.
yeah, and the he goes, oh yeah, you get 10 re-rolls. It's like, well, if I've got an opponent that's fight 5 and they're rolling a
And he's shooting
6,
me all the time.
yeah, but yeah, if your opponent that's got
What
the fight
use are they?
value and is rolling 6s, well, I can't re-roll to get to a 7, so what do you want me?
Wow,
What am I
I
going to
got
do with
10
the re-roll?
influence for that.
Yeah, so yeah, the fact that you can go, well, I lost, but I get a bonus experience for all of my models. Cool. That means I've just got 3 upgrades, and all of a sudden,
I'm
it's
back in
completely
track
changed.
too.
Yeah, it's changed the. I mean, I thought that was so clever. Um, Such a clever way of implementing um, what happens when one guy really gets ahead. But what I found with like the people I play with, at least, is that you go, well, what, like, you finish a game and you go, well, what rating are you at? Well, I'm at 180, and you go, well, I'm at 140. He's like,
Oh,
and the
no, no,
180
we
guy,
lose.
180 guy goes, well, I won't use my influence now because there's no point in me getting stupidly far ahead because it just stops it being as fun. So
So, part of the advantage we've got as a test group is we do this online through TTS, which is a bit easier to do things because you don't have to worry about getting models getting models available. Everyone can play everyone anytime. They're free. Um, I mean, Kami lives in the States. I live in the UK. Normally, there'd be no chance we'd get a game in, obviously. But a 5-hour time zone difference doesn't make a difference online. So we've played loads of games,
yeah,
um, and because of that, we have a slightly different experience. A lot of people just spend influence just because they can, because they want to see where their company can get.
yeah,
I mean, we use Battle Companies Manager like yourselves because we think it's an amazing bit of property.
mm,
Um, and sometimes we do, oh yeah, let's compare companies we've got. I think in my graveyard, which I specifically not my graveyard, my retired companies, which something which he asked Paul ourselves if he could add because we were all getting completely cluttered with how many were in our main thing. It's like I can't see anything for companies. I think
yeah.
I've got one there which is saved at 600 rating or something stupid
That's
after we completed
nuts.
one campaign.
Yeah. They, I think. What do you think the limit for the points is for a company, realistically speaking?
A realistic limit would, I think, once you get to about 300, 350, which sounds like a lot but isn't actually that hard to reach.
Mm,
If you're doing a narrative campaign, I would tend to advise just going straight into the next narrative scenario. Maybe you get one scenario in between, but you stop trying to grind it out because eventually it's just not fun. You can't get any fun out of it. You want things to still be a challenge at the end of the day.
mm,
I completely so the company we in question with 600 rating, it was elves. Yes, feel free to shame me. I was playing elves at the time. I know people don't like elves. I
no
don't
judgment.
like elves that much.
I don't like playing
Um,
elves. It's like, oh, you rolled a 6. Cool.
yeah, yeah, great. Worse, I was playing Rivendell, and this was we were testing out what happens if you don't use cavalry limits. I kind of proved how bad that was because I'm playing Rivendell and I didn't choose Rivendell before we decided this. Comey was in charge. He was like, "Nah, no cavalry limits this time." I'm like, Okay, I won't abide by cavalry limits," and I ended up with some ridiculous amount of mounts. And
Yeah, so
I
that's one of
completely
the really
stopped
interesting
getting lost.
things that you've put in the community rules, which you don't have in the main game, is that there are cavalry limits like you have bow limits.
Mm,
Because no one wants to face 15 mounted Rohan warriors
no, no.
in a scenario where you're running around picking up light objects. It's like,
I mean, it's still high. Rohan will still hit 10 under cavalry limit because
yeah,
they're considered a cavalry focused faction. But yeah, we agree. There are a bunch of things which is just why is this allowed? This is silly. we don't want to force you to use it. It's optional, but we've put it in there so it's available to people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that me and the people I play with have ever played a thing where
Oh,
we
of
haven't
course.
the cavalry limit because, yeah, I
We've
mean,
been using all our
the idea of
options.
placing 15 Farharad camels all
Yeah,
within the Impaler rule is just like,
yeah, fun.
Jesus, best of luck with that. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Not for
having,
me. I'll say not for me.
yeah, I mean, well, well, me and Stephen did a Rohan versus Farharad campaign. And yeah, I ended up with 6 camels, and that with the Impaler. I mean, if you just keep strength 4 hits just for charging, it's and then
I mean, we
being able to
actually,
carry on charging and carry on charging is like, huh?
yeah. I mean, and in Community Edition, they no longer grant wounds. In Vanilla, that would grant you wound experience. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's it's like maybe the camel should be able to upgrade himself for the wounds that he gets.
Hey, Path of the Night would allow you to upgrade that camel, so
Yeah, uh, camel becomes strength 5 with his Impaler after 5. And why don't we just give him a minigun while we're at it?
why not? Yeah.
Just for fun. So with Val on as a special guest, it was only right that we decided to offer up whichever companies he wanted to talk about. So the 2 companies that he's chosen are the Shire, which I have not used at all. I have not faced at all. So
They are my
very
favorite good company.
like so them and Karna, who I've used quite a bit. So first off, the Shire. Now at this point, I'm going to do a dramatic reading, but I'm just creating a bit of space to remind myself to put that in there. Um, Now, Val, do you want to tell me about the starting battle company? What do you get with the Shire when you start off?
So the Shire, when you start off, you get one Dunedain model who must be your leader. Because he's already a hero, he doesn't actually gain any additional might, will, or fate, because he already starts with one of each. You also gain 8 Hobbit militia, which can be armed in any way, and 2 Hobbit archers.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of models. I mean, and lots of models is their thing, I guess. But yeah, I'm really fascinated to know how you make the how why you find that they are so good. But before we get into that, let's talk about the reinforcements. So the first thing that is rare across the reinforcements, it is only 2 influence to get reinforcements. So 1 will get you nothing, 2 will get you Hobbit Militia, 3 will get you Hobbit Archer, 4 will get you Hobbit. I never know if it's Sheriff that just spelt
It's
wrong or Sheriff.
Sheriff or Sheriff.
Yeah.
You can use either.
Okay. So 5 is 2 Hobbit Militia, and 6 is choosing any 2 hobbits from the above. There's no special chart, but yeah. So I mean, I guess 2 influence, you could potentially be getting what was a 1 in 3 chance that you're going to get
You've got to
2 extra models.
exactly.
Yeah.
Additionally, if your company's Dunedain's been slain at any point, if you get a successful roll, so that's anything from a 2 up, you may immediately replace that result with a new Dunedain who immediately becomes a new leader or sergeant. But you can only have one Dunedain at any time.
Yeah, and I guess what this kind of setup is well, it feels like. I mean, is the Dunedain basically Strider? Is that and
He's pretty much Strider or Arathorn or any sort of Ranger of the North
yeah,
or Dunedain who you think
yeah,
that sounds quite fun.
yeah. So the company hero upgrade. So there's different ones depending on whether it's a Hobbit or a Dunedain. So with the Hobbits is made of sterner stuff. So rather than die after more than a few days or weeks or years of wandering in the wild, this hobbit has proved they are more like the ranger than previously thought. So 2 things happen. First of all, they gain the woodland creature special rule, which means that they are not slowed down by traveling through woodland things. And does it change anything to do with any tests that they make, or is that's these
No,
mountains?
it's just woodland terrain sort of
Yeah.
thing.
But additionally, they get +1 to their strength when making strikes, which is very useful because of most of the hobbits are strength 2.
All
So
hobbits are strength 2 to start with, yes. So
yeah,
that's very useful.
yeah, and then you've got the dangerous folk, which is for the Dunedain only. So it says the Dunedain are a dangerous folk that wander the wilderness to the north. I nearly went to Sean Bean there, mastering every path and honing their skills. So once again, they get the woodland creature special rule. But additionally, whilst on foot, this model adds 1 to their attacks characteristic. So straight off the bat, I'm wondering whether. So let's say you have your Dunedain and you put them on a path, and that obviously has a maximum amount of attacks. So let's say that a maximum attacks was 3.
So if their maximum attacks is 3, while they're on foot, they would have 4 attacks, not 3 attacks.
Okay, so this is kind of in addition. So it's like the many blades rule is
It's
that
like the many.
unblocked
It's sort of so the many blades rule. Yeah, it's sort of like the many blades rule, I guess. Yes,
in the way that it works, rather
in the
than
way that it works. Yeah. We'll go
yeah,
into how that
that's
works for Karna later.
yeah, that's helpful. And can you talk about the advancements, because I had to kind of message you and say I cannot find these. Um,
Yes.
see how much Shire experience I've got here.
So admittedly, Shire is not much used in the community at large. So I don't blame anyone who can't necessarily find these. The Hobbit Militia, if it like successfully promotes, becomes a battling brandy buck. Uh, the rules for this are found on Captain Mary's profile in the main sort of armies book for Lord of the Rings. Basically, they're militia who are strength 3 rather than strength 2.
Mhm.
And additionally, you can get Hobbit archers. If they promote, they become a Tookish hunter. Again, their rules are found on the profile of Captain Pippin in Shire. And they're rather than being fight 2, fight 3, fight 2, 3 plus, they are fight 3, 3 plus.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be useful little bits of stats um, for when you're playing Shire, because fight 2 doesn't beat much, does it? So
Fight 2 does not beat a lot, no.
yeah. So and just finishing up in terms of the kind of the basics of it, we've got unique war gear. So Hobbit heroes can have a pony, which is 2 influence points, and the Dunedain can have a horse, which is 3 influence points. And this is the thing, I guess, which makes it just completely nuts, is that company special rules, a Shire battle company may have up to 25 models rather than
Yes.
15.
Yeah. This is pretty useful, especially because you start at 11 models. For those of you who were counting earlier,
Hmm.
so you are not immediately capping out after a couple of reinforcements. No, you can have up to 25 models.
Yeah, that's interesting. But have they got any spear support at all?
So sort of. The only model that can buy spears naturally as sort of a warrior option would be the Dunedain, because Dunedains may be armed with spears.
Hmm.
But because they have spear access through the Dunedain, any Hobbit heroes you get may then purchase spears.
Okay, so this
So you can get spears in there. It's difficult and it will cost you a bit of influence and therefore rating, but they do get spear support eventually.
okay. So yeah, I was just wondering how you. So obviously, it's all gonna be about, in terms of killing, it's gonna be about outnumbering and trapping. Um,
Swarming, yes.
with absolutely swarming people. Just the idea of hobbits going mental and charging it like wargs and stuff is just insanity. So
It's not. It is pretty lethal as well. I can attest.
okay, so I'm yeah looking forward to finding out more about this. First of all, what I mean, was there a Shire Battle Company in the vanilla version?
There is a Shire Battle Company in Vanilla Battle Companies, but in Vanilla you get 8 Hobbit militia and 4 Hobbit archers. The Dunedain
Mhm.
isn't there at all. The reinforcement chart is the same, but it's worth 3 influence points. They've got a really rubbish company hero upgrade that I couldn't tell you off the bat. It's very bad. Only the leader may have a pony. Um, it's a lot worse in vanilla.
Yeah, yeah, definitely sounds it when they don't sound right anyway. So let's just go through the stat line, and then you can tell me why they're so awesome, and I'll be like, yeah, I can see that now because I can I can kind of see it. I believe you. It's just I'm not there yet. So the Dunedain, so they have sword and bow, and they automatically have heroic accuracy as one of their heroic actions available to them, which may or may not be useful with just one might. They do have one might, one will, one fate. As Val said, or you don't get any extra. They have to be your leader, and that's just what they start as. And then the stats are pretty decent. Movement 6, fight 4, the 3+ to shoot. Strength 4, which is always useful. Defense 4, which is 1 attack, 1 wound, and a nice healthy courage of 4. Do you tell us about the Hobbit militia, Val?
Yeah, so the Hobbit militia, they can be armed with one of three weapons, so an axe, a dagger, or hammer. This is actually important if you use special strikes, which we can get into later.
Sure.
They get the throwstone special rule, which means that if they don't move that turn, they may make a shooting attack which has 8 inches and is at strength 1. Um, and they also have the resistant to magic special rule, which isn't particularly useful in battle companies, but it does mean that enemy sorcerers can't really do much to them. Stat wise, they have 4-inch movement because they're hobbits and they're quite slow. Fight 1 3 plus, they are the worst models in the game for terms of fight value. Their strength 2, which is somewhat weak, defense 3, which is pretty middling or low, depending on how you want to look at it. 1 attack and 1 wound, and 3 courage.
Moving on to the Hobbit Archer, which has a short bow and a dagger. So short bows are strength 2 with an 18-inch range. They have the throw stone special rule, which I don't particularly know why you'd use if you've got a bow anyway, and they're resistant to magic as well, just like all hobbits are. Movement 4, fight of 2, 3+ to shoot, strength 2, defense 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, and a courage of 3.
Yeah, so better than a militia in stats, but not that much better.
Yeah. And then the sheriff.
So the sheriff has a hand he has a hand and a half club. Again, he has the throw stone special rule and resist magic. Their movement 4, their fight 3 with a 3+, strength 2, defense 3. They got 1 attack, 1 wound, and their courage 3.
And then on to the couple of well, we mentioned the kind of upgrades already. The Battle in Brandybuck, so that is a Hobbit militia that's strength 3, and the Tookish Hunter is a Hobbit archer that is
fight 3.
Fight 3, yeah. Okay. All right. So tell me, why are they your favorite? What makes them so wonderful?
So first of all, I'll be honest. Part of the joy is just being able to look at your opponent's face when you just plonk down about 20 models on the board after maybe 2 games. That is a lot of fun. I know you play Moria from what you said. I'm sure you must
I
have similar
haven't
sort
yet.
of.
I'm about to. I'm just waiting for about to do Moria. Yeah.
So it's one of those. I have lots more bodies than you, and they're like, wait, how have you got this much when you're only at this rating? That is part of the fun.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Uh,
I mean, my
um,
only experience of hobbits on the board was I can't remember which company. There's a company that can have one hobbit.
Wonders of the Wild.
Wonders in the Wild, yeah. So my friend Dave had a Wonders in the Wild company, and he played that against my Angmar, and there was just this ongoing theme where I decided that no matter what the scenario, no matter what the situation in the game, it was my leader's duty to rip that hobbit's head off. So
Fair.
he would be riding around on his warg, like sometimes completely against what was going to be helpful for the game. It was like, I don't like that hobbit, I'm going to rip its head off.
No, that's
But
fair.
there was a situation where he very nearly threw a stone and killed him despite the fact he was behind cover. So it's like
W-
I think he
That
needed.
is another reason I really like them. So everyone sleeps on throw stones. I know they do.
Mm,
In Community Edition, in the last edition actually in 3.0, what might have snuck under the radar for someone is we really revamped the equipment section.
mm,
One of the additions to the equipment section was slingshots. For anyone who is unfamiliar, a slingshot basically gives you a 12-inch version of a 12-inch sort of bow, as it were, with a
mm.
strength one attack. If they don't move, they may fire twice. If they move up to half, they may fire once. And if they move more than half, they can't fire it. What we did is we made that accessible to any model which is either a hobbit or a goblin, and it doesn't count to bow limit.
See, I'd seen that there's slingshots in there, but I had like not considered. But yeah, the idea of having a whole bunch of goblins with slingshots, just like
Yes, is
eh,
fun, right?
yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I can see that.
So obviously hobbits have got throw stone. Well, this is an upgraded version of throw stone, and it only
Yeah,
costs you one influence point a model. So yeah, okay, it's pretty expensive to kit the entire army company out, but
yeah.
that's
Well,
pretty
look,
lethal.
but potentially you're getting reinforcements for one influence per model, though. So
Exactly. Yeah.
the, you and if you're winning, then you've got the opportunity to, you could win one game
Win
and get four new
exponentially.
models
Yes.
potentially, or get two
Yeah.
models and give both of them a slingshot. So yeah,
Yeah.
so okay, I'm coming around to the idea, but how do you not just get destroyed with? I mean, I'm guessing
So
you can push it to defense four, but like
you
if
can
you're up
push it.
against if you're up against Uruks, for example,
Yeah.
that strength four
Or
and
more importantly, fight for, which means that they can just walk all over your hobbits. No, I understand the discussion point. So a big advantage hobbits have is they start with 11 models. That's a good advantage. They also have a Dunedain. He's probably one of the best like initial starting models in the current edition.
Mhm.
The only ones better than him would be the Ranger of the North, who's in Passing of the Grey Company, and there's a couple of others in other companies. I couldn't tell you what they are off the top of my head
Hunter
because there are
Orcs.
41. Hunter Orcs are very good as well, yes. But yeah, no, it does look tough, right? But a starting company of Shire is 11 models. Starting company of Elves is 5 models. Well, you can outnumber your opponent 2 to 1 in every fight, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah,
If you're throwing 2 dice, you've got a better chance of getting that 6. It doesn't matter how high their fight value is. And strength 2 wounds against defense up to defense 4 on a 5 plus, up to defense 6. It's still a 6 plus, so they're no worse at wounding, say, Uruks with a shield than an
yeah,
elf would be, if that's an Urukai warrior.
yeah.
So from that point of view, yeah, it does look a lot tougher on paper, but in practice, it comes down to the wounding chart.
Yeah, so I guess once they hit something that's defense six, that's when they're, you wouldn't want them against dwarves, for example, or
No,
something.
against dwarves, they do struggle a little bit, but this is where special strikes come into play. So Hobbit Militia can have axes, daggers, and hammers. Now, daggers allow you to feint or stab, which means you get to reroll ones to wound. That's quite nice. Not the
Mhm.
best, but it's quite nice. Hammers allow you to basically make a strength test against your opponent. So you roll a d6, they roll a d6. Both players add their strength value to it. If the person with the hammer equals or beats the other player, that model is knocked prone.
Yeah,
So against strength 3 models, if you've got a couple of Hobbit militia with hammers, if you've got a chance to prone someone, then obviously they considered trapped for the rest of the combat, right?
yeah,
If you've got a few models there, that means that you can suddenly make that 3 strikes into 4 strikes, and they still need to get up next turn. But
yeah,
crucially, there's axes. Now, for anyone who isn't aware, if you have an axe, you may make a piercing strike. Uh, If you are successful in your combat, you add +1 to your strength value. So your Hobbit militia would be at strength 3 in that instance. Battling brandy bucks can actually hit strength 4, and heroes further still if you get that high.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you lose, you lose you lose D3 defense. But your hobbits, you don't have any defense, so you don't care, and you
Yeah.
only cost 2 influence. So it's more a case of we have more available to us. Even if I lose, I can make a reinforcement roll because I
Yeah.
have 2 influence.
So you've very much got to not get attached to your hobbits at all.
It becomes more of a case of the heroes are the ones that you want to be attached to. The others are bodies you throw at things. You want them to win because they get better when they win. Because any militia becoming a battling brandy buck, he's strength 3 now. That's very useful.
Yeah.
And you can always pair if you pair a militia with a Dunedain, for example, or with a sheriff if you get one. We've got one model that's fight 3 or 4 there, and the other model, if he's a battling brandy buck and he's got an axe, he can hit strength 4,
Yeah.
so he can actually wound quite a lot of things, and he's going to be worth 4 points.
Okay. I'm beginning to get sold. So what's there in terms of the scenarios which are going to be the one? I mean, ones where you're holding objectives. That's got to be their absolute.
Yeah. So if they're trying
That's
to,
their jam. Yeah.
yeah, so stuff like seize the outpost, you are probably going to win if your opponent doesn't realize, hey, you're playing a Shire company. I need to kill you before I kill the orcs, because
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, you will have the sort of numbers advantage there.
Yeah. Which scenarios do they really struggle at?
Um, there are, I wouldn't say there's a huge amount of them that they truly struggle at. I mean, to be fair, I like Shire. I would say probably one of the most they one of the ones they probably struggle at the most are anything where they are trying to attack something and the opponent is the defender. So baggage train, they're pretty bad at because they move slowly. Hold the line if you can easily be avoided, sort of thing. Because again, they move pretty slowly.
So
It's
anyone when they've
basically
got to get
something where
anywhere.
it's stuff where speed is important. You can easily beat Shire if you've got speed.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they're going to struggle against ones with armies with high
A high
movement speed.
movement win scenarios which emphasize that being a useful stat. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess kind of the main issue with playing Shire for anyone who was at least kind of thoroughly convinced and interested is that, as far as I'm aware, GW are not making the models anymore because Stephen tried to order them. In fact, he did order them, and they said, "No, we're not doing these anymore." So you're
Uh,
either looking at second-hand models, which are very expensive, or 3D printing, which is less
Yeah,
so.
I
But
think I'm pretty sure they've left the rotation at the moment.
yeah,
GW obviously do rotate their models, so I reckon they'll be back there eventually. But yeah, as you say, for the meantime, you are looking at a pretty expensive like method to get your hands on them. And even
so,
when they're available, they don't for some reason want people to play Shire because a Shire Battle Company, which is the cheapest method you can buy them, you get 4 archers, 4 militia, 4 sheriffs. That's like £40, I think it
mm,
was last I checked. That's like That's like £3 a bottle, and they're hobbits, and you need
yeah,
hundreds of them.
yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. That is. But no, I'll admit they sound fun. They sound like, I mean, they're not even glass cannons, are they? They're just, I don't know.
No, glass
There's a
cannons is
lot
a
of glass.
glass cannons is a pretty apt descriptor. That's why I play them.
Yeah, I can see the fun. So you've done a good job of convincing me that there might be something in that. But I think I think I'd rather play against them just because,
No, I completely understand that.
like, just because of the idea of them being sliced and diced by something evil is kind of like
Yeah, that
appealing
is
to me
also
because I'm a
quite
psycho.
fun having done the opposition of it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Anything else you want to share about the Shire before we move on to Karna?
I think what you would like to, I guess people might want to know what advancements I would advise
Oh yeah, so yeah, sorry,
for
that's
heroic
one thing I
paths.
completely forgot. So hero paths, how do you set it up? So you've got your Junior Dane as your leader. I mean, Ranger
You,
screams Ranger or
Ranger screams the correct one, right?
mm,
I would actually argue that you can pretty much take him on any path there because he has the advantage of he doesn't have heavy armor, so
hmm
he can go, for example, via skirmisher, which I know
hmm
you're quite a fan of.
I do like
Um,
skirmishing.
you can obviously stick him on a horse because he can buy a horse, which means you can go path the knight, or you can sort of shove him down. I don't know anything really like warrior. The point being is because he doesn't actually have a shield, he doesn't have any issues, as it were, for gaining a two-handed weapon. If you wanted to go path of the warrior, for example,
hmm
path of the duelist would allow him to get heroic strike, and with the company specific, which gives him that extra attack whenever he's on foot, you really don't have to worry about anything. So, world is your oyster, as it were. My last campaign, I had mine as a sorcerer, just
Nice.
cause.
Just
Um,
because, I mean, why not?
Well, plus because they get the bonus attack from the special rule, that's very nice. And then in the equipment chart, there is something called a sorcerer's familiar, which basically gives you another attack. So even though I'm playing a sorcerer which can't roll extra attacks, I still had three of them.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, and I think that when you're playing something that's a little bit meh on the stat line, like Magic's kind of the great leveler because
Yeah,
it's
having gimmicks is really fun. Yes.
yeah. So
Um,
I can see it. So what do you do at minutes? So you've kind of got, like you said, the world's your oyster in terms of what you do with your leader. What are you doing with your sergeants? Are we going sharpshooter um, with one of the
so
Hobbit archers, or you know?
yeah, sharpshooter and range are pretty good for the archers. The militia, again, you can go with quite a few things. So an interesting thing I only just worked out the last time I ran Shire, and this is just where I have fun finding out new things. So ponies are fight two, right? Well, militias are
Mhm.
fight one, and you may use your mount's fight value. So if you mount a militia, they instantly are considered fight two until you basically roll plus fight twice. So I think I
Okay.
had a Hobbit Knight just for that campaign, just cause it sounded hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down with that.
Um, Equally, skirmisher again, you can get throwing daggers. They're already shoot value free, so shoot value two with throwing daggers. That's quite nice, obviously.
Yeah,
You got
you get
watchmen that can get to movement six. Obviously, they can freely heroic move. Movement six doesn't sound like a big deal, but you're a hobbit, so that's a huge deal.
yep,
Path of the Defender, obviously, you gain a shield. Well, that's very nice, obviously.
yep,
And you can obviously protect all your friendly, like, Hobbit models from ranged attacks if you get Tortoise formation.
nice.
So there are a few options there. Again, it's a case of looking at the charts, having fun with it, seeing what you think sounds fun. Plus, at the end of the day, it's a Hobbit. Like, if it dies, that is unfortunate, but you will get lots of them, and if a leader or a sergeant dies, you automatically promote the model with the most experience up. So you're never devoid of being able to experiment with hobbits. It's very easy to experiment.
Nice. Okay. I'm gonna have to buy some Hobbit models, obviously.
Good. I'm glad I could convince someone.
No, that ultimately, like I said earlier, it's all about having fun, and it just does sound like fun. So, I mean, there's a few other companies I want to run first, but yeah, it does sound fun. So that's yeah. So, I mean, these so your favorite. So, would you give them a ten
They're my
out of 10?
favorite. Uh, uh, in terms of
Are they the best
enjoyment,
list?
yeah. In terms of enjoyment, yeah, I would say 10 out of 10. In terms of actually being a viable company, uh, they're definitely probably a 5 or a 6. You do need to know what you're doing. You do need to sort of look at it and go, what gimmickry can I pull out? Because it is ultimately a gimmick company. It's not meant to be on par with your Mini Smoggles, your Mordor, your Eastlings, which I mean, I think those are some of the most powerful companies in the system at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I'm going to give them a solid 6. I mean, I was thinking they're going to be one of the worst, but
if they weren't influence 2 for reinforcement, you'd be right. But 2 influence, you
yeah.
can't sleep on it. If you if
You,
you win, you roll for influence, and you can add 2 to your influence rolls. You've actually got a pretty decent chance of getting 2 hobbits there. All you've got to do is roll a 3+, and you can get 2 new hobbits to your company.
and I guess the other thing is if you've got someone that's par for the general and he gets the +1 influence for
Exactly.
every game, then yeah, you're
Yeah, exponential
laughing with
growth.
the
Yes.
yeah. It's like here's my 25 models, and my rating's 112 or something. I mean, it's not going
You
to be that, but
kill one, 2 more pop up in his place. Yes.
yeah, I'm trying to kill a Hydra. Um, cool, right. Well, I'm quite excited about the idea of a Shire thing happening at some point. So uh, we've talked for ages again, and it's kind of saying I've got like not that much time left, so we might have to stop and start again if you're okay with
No,
that.
that makes sense. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
So I might. How long does it say I've got? We've got 6 minutes, so we can start Karna and then have a
Yeah.
break. Okay. So on to your favorite evil company, which is Karna. And you'd already told me that it's something that you do a little bit differently to most things. But let me just kind of talk about them. I'm going to give you the dramatic reading. Insert dramatic reading here. And well, I'm just going to scroll to get the company in front of me. So do you want to tell us about the starting company?
Yeah, I could say about that. So, the starting company, you get 2 Harrigan warriors with spear. You get 2 Harrigan warriors with bow, and because they're Harrigan, they have poisoned arrows with their bow. You get 2 Watchers of Karna, which have twin blades, which is a special piece of equipment unique to Watcher of Karna. And finally, you get 1 Watcher of Karna with a bow, and again, that also has poisoned arrows. Specifically, all 3 of your Watchers of Karna must be leader and sergeants when you start. So,
Yeah, that makes it nice and easy. So, in terms of your reinforcements, there's quite a bit to go through here. So, 3 influence points to roll. 1 will get you nothing. 2 or 3 will give you Haradrim Warrior with Spear. 4 or 5 will give you 1 with Poison Arrows, and a 6 will take you up to the special chart. Now, on the special chart, a roll of a 1 will give you a Warrior of Karna, which, if I'm not mistaken, is that something you've created for this?
so actually, Karna is a vanilla battle company. So this is straight take from the book. It's
Oh,
one of the
okay.
few which we
Yeah.
actually really like.
Yeah. So 1 with your Warrior of Karna. So that's the same as uh, sorry, it's the
It's a
same as a
Haradrim.
Haradrim Warrior with a better shoot value.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So 1 will give you a Warrior of Karna with Spear. A 2 will give you a Warrior of Karna with Poison Arrows. A 3 to a 5 will give you a Watcher of Karna with whichever war gear you would like. And finally, a 6 on the special chart will give you a Spectral Warrior, which you can only have 1 of. And that has the same profile as a Warrior of the Dead. So we'll get into all of that in a bit. Couple of things you need to know about the company in general. So the company hero upgrade, the hero causes terror, which is just fascinating. Really can be really game changing. That, and obviously, the Haradrim are quite bow orientated. So there is
Heavy. Yes.
there's a company special rule where you can have 50% bows rather than the normal 1/3. So yeah, can you tell us about the advancements?
Yeah, so the advancements, a Haradrim warrior with bow, he becomes a warrior of Karna with bow, which, as mentioned earlier, has a 3+ shoot value. The Haradrim warrior with spear, they can become a warrior of Karna with spear. And then a warrior of Karna with bow may become a watcher of Karna with bow. So it's one of the few companies which has a double advancement. And then equally, a warrior of Karna with spear, well, they can become a watcher of Karna with twin blades.
So I realized later than I possibly could have done that you're actually in a situation where you could end up with 14 Watchers of Karna and a Spectral Warrior as your
Yes,
company.
yeah, you absolutely can, and not even through rolling special chart, just through advancements.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, I really like Karna. I've run a company for a little while, just for kind of pickup games rather than a campaign. And I've got some really cool 3D prints, and it's just like a bunch of ninjas running around doing cool shit.
That
Um,
that is definitely a fun dynamic, I have to say. So we haven't actually made any changes to this one. It's one of the few companies which has been ported straight over. It's just genuinely very balanced.
okay. Um, so Games Workshop got something right. Um, so
To be fair to them, I will say that a lot of the system in general is fine. It's just when you play a lot of it and you go over it with a comb, you realize it's meant to be beer and pretzels, and we play a lot more than beer and pretzels games. Um, and suddenly, stuff which looks okay on paper is suddenly incredibly unbalanced, such as elves being only influence 3 in vanilla.
yeah, um, I still think they should have a limit of like 12 models as well, but that's a story for another day. Um, Onto the stat lines of Watchers of Karna. So they're interesting. So the base equipment is simply a sword, but then you get to choose between either twin blades or a bow with poisoned arrow. Obviously, with the starting company, you get two with twin blades and one with poison arrow. That's the right way around, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So the twin blades that raises your attacks to two. So that's one of the special rules that
Uh,
you get
so
automatically. So
crucially, if you for the purposes of advancements, twin blades mean you start at that attack stat of 2.
mm,
It's slightly different to the special rule with rangers where they gain it an additional attack on top of what the path limit is.
yeah.
Twin blades will raise it to 2, but if your path caps at 2, how we've been playing it is you just can basically ignore having to roll that again. You're already at 2 attacks.
Okay.
So they
Fair
still
enough.
only cap at 3 attacks.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would be a tad obscene. But we say this, and you look at stuff like Hunter Orcs, so that is possibly up to that's up to debate. And if anyone else has a group which they think the Twin Blades rule is a bit underpowered as we rule it, by all means have it work as if it was the Hunter Orc special rule.
Fair enough. I can see what you mean about all of that. They got resistant to magic, which is can be useful, I guess, depending on who you're playing against. And they've got hatred of spirits, which means they get that's +1 to wound spirits, isn't it?
It is +1 to wound any model which is marked as spirit. There aren't a lot of those, but stuff like Denmark Spectres, certainly you will do +1 to wound, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and they've also got something called Steely Nerve, which can be very good when you're fighting against big scary things and spirits as well, because they get +2 courage when charging terror-causing models, and also they can use a +2 courage when being wounded by someone making strikes using Blades of the Dead, because Blades of the Dead, as we said in the last episode when talking about Dead Marsh Spectres, is rather than getting wounding against your defense stat, you get wounding
Defense.
against your courage stat. So essentially, um, it's courage 5, so it's like defense 5 to
Yes, yeah.
which is
It's very,
compared to three.
uh,
So say it's
very
making them
useful.
very very useful in certain circumstances. So the stat line reads as follows: so movement 6, fight 4, 3 plus, strength 3, defense 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, and a courage of 3. So those automatically your leader and two sergeants. So we'll talk about the paths later on, which I nearly forgot about entirely with the Shire. What about Haradrim warriors, there, Val?
So Haradrim warriors, they get an armor and dagger, or a sword if you want to call it that. It's the same thing. And then they can get a spear for a point or a bow with poisoned arrows for 1 point. They have movement 6 because they're humans, obviously. Their fight 3, 4 plus. Got strength 3, defense 4, attack 1, wound 1, and their courage 3. So
Yeah.
pretty basic stat line, but it's quite usable sort of thing.
It's yeah, it's a relatively basic stat line, but the fact that you've got the 50% bow limit means that 4+ shooting is kind of handy. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and then you've got the advancements of Warrior of Karna, which means the shoot value is can go up to
Yeah.
3+. And then finally, you've got Spectral Warriors. So this is the same as a Warrior of the Dead. So they they've got heavy armor and a sword as standard, if I remember correctly. I've not written this
It's
down.
actually armor and a sword as standard,
So
but for some reason they're
armor.
marked as armor. Yeah.
Yeah. So my confusion comes when you hear me read the defense stat at the moment.
Yes.
And then they can have a shield for an extra point or a spear for an extra point. They cause terror, unsurprisingly. They have the Blades of the Dead special rule, which I just mentioned, where you're wounding against courage. And they've got Spectral Walk, which means they can cross water as if it is open ground, which in certain situations is going to be incredibly useful. And the stat line is as follows. So they've got a movement of 6, fight 3, which surprises me always. They're 4+ with a shooting, strength 3, defense is sickeningly 7, 1 attack, 1 wound, and unsurprisingly, a very high courage of 6. So, Val, I mean, you've chosen this as your favorite evil company. So, and you told me about some themey stuff that you do differently. So, talk me through what what makes Karna float your boat.
So, in general, Karna floats my boat initially because I mean, I quite like Games Workshop's lore around Harad. I don't know if many people are aware of this, but while obviously they have the rights to like a bunch of stuff, Harad was pretty much free game, and they got the rights to develop Harad completely by themselves. Didn't have to have any oversight, as it were, provided they didn't step on too many toes. Karna's quite an interesting place. It's basically a city of the dead, and the Watchers are actually sort of like good guys rather than bad guys, in that they're there to stop the spectral warriors, the like unquiet dead, from escaping the city. So, from a theme point of view, this is quite interesting, I find. And then I realized that I wanted to play a Rangers company, but we'd already banned Rangers, and I didn't want to play, and that was fine with me. And I thought, how can I theme this? Oh, I know. This can be the Rangers after the fall of Fornost.
Why not?
So as
Why
opposed to
not?
what, so opposed to Watches of Karna, I've got like sort of basically. I think they're marked down when I do it as something like a Dunedain Warrior or something, and then I've got like skirmishes of Fornost and stuff. And again, you've got a Spectral Warrior, and rather than him being meant to be a member of the Unquiet Dead of Harrod or whatever, he's a dead sort of like warrior of Arnor trapped in the city because the Witch King's a evil guy who likes doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, what I like about battle companies, as well, there's billions of things, I guess, but is the fact that you can just go, yeah, I'm going to run a Karna company, but I'm going to use all Ranger models because the thing is that
Yeah,
the what you guys have done, the community rules, is you've created such a good level of balance with all of it that it doesn't, it doesn't really matter. So,
exactly. Yeah.
my one question is, do you run this as an evil company? Can you
They're
shoot
they're,
in
sti- they're
combat?
they're still considered evil, so they still get their poisoned bows. They can still shoot through their lads. It's basically meant to be them as like they've just lost Arnor itself, so they're completely under threat. So they're doing anything they can to try and retake it, and eventually going to get more honorable sort of thing.
Yeah,
But it's definitely not meant to be sort of like Aragorn's company that is passing the Grey Company,
yeah.
which I'm sure you'll get onto at a later date. It's meant to be. the chieftains who've literally just like had to take over after Arvedoui's dead, sort of thing. That's my theme.
Love it. And this is the sort of thing that I like really encourage people to do, is just to go, you know what, I want it to be like this. So um Dave, who I mentioned a few times before, who have played more games against anyone else, he set up a Rohan company, and he said, like, what if it was Rohan, but it all went horribly wrong, and so Rohan was it was still Theoden was still under the control of Saruman. So he had Theoden as his like leader, and then had Grima as a sergeant. So they were an evil Rohan company, basically. Um,
Why not?
so Grima was in there as a sergeant. No might, will, or fate to kind of balance it, but he did have his kind of annoying get in the way special rule, and then to represent the lack of power that Theoden had. Theoden didn't start with any might or will, because he didn't have any will and he didn't have any might about him. So he just had fate. So it's kind of going, right. How can I change or expand the law to make it fun?
Right, exactly. That is part of the enjoyment of battle companies I find as well. So I
Yeah,
also very much encourage this. If anyone's out there and they're like, "Oh, I'm not sure," just ask your group. If your group are okay with it, do what you want. It's much better to have fun than it is to think I have to force myself into this narrow tube.
yeah, exactly. I think it's got to be about expanding your mind and options and stuff, and just going, what's fun? Because like I said several times already, that's what it's got to be all about at the end of the day. Um, so looking at them in general, I mean, you can essentially get to the point where you are with 14 watches of Karna, just through advancements and stuff. Is that optimum, do you think? Or do you
I'm not.
think spear support
I
is
don't
good
know
to
if
have?
it's optimum, but like you obviously can't refuse to take a promotion if you roll it. So
Yeah,
if you end up in that situation, you might as well take advantage.
yeah.
I agree. I would rather have the one spectral warrior, a fair few watchers, preferably your heroes if you can make it happen,
Hmm.
and then you want a few. And then I'd say you probably want warriors. Warriors of Karna are good if you've got them with bows because they're no worse at shooting than watchers are.
Hmm.
But obviously, if you just got spears, Harrigan warriors are perfectly fine. So
Yeah. So one of the really cool things about them, I think, is I always think that when attacks or wounds comes up as a role, I'm always choosing attacks first, because
yes,
so the fact that you're starting with a couple of warriors who've already got two attacks just
means
means
you
that
can.
they're just really solid, from the get go.
Yeah.
Um,
It also means if you roll that, obviously you can either choose to go all out on attacks and have three attacks,
yeah,
or alternatively, you can be actually, I want them to survive around a bit longer so they can get more experience over the like long haul and grab
yeah,
that extra wound because you've already got the attack.
yeah. And the wounds thing is kind of important because you're only sitting at defense three. Obviously, you can buy an armor upgrade, because armor is available to the Haradrim warriors. So you can get armor to get up to defense four.
You
Um,
can also buy a shield because the spectral warrior is there and he has a shield.
yeah, I felt a little bit sick at the idea of that because it just felt wrong. I was like, this is like a dude with two blades, and he's in basically a ninja. It doesn't feel
I'm
right.
not saying you
By the
have to
shield.
do it for everyone, but it does mean that you can have, you know, if you do want to, you can justify it by saying this guy's a pretty good guy. He's got like a buck, perhaps,
Yeah,
and hey, he can actually survive a bit more. Someone pointed that out a couple years ago while we were doing first edition for community roles, and we were like, actually, that's a pretty important change compared to regular Harrod. That's really useful. And we're like, no, we're not ditching this. We're keeping it.
yeah. I mean, like, it makes sense. It's like, let's just think about this. So the defense three is standard. You could buy armor. You can get an armor upgrade rolled, and then a shield. So could you get them to defense 6?
You can get them to defense 6. Yeah,
Yeah. You
I'm
just got
not
to throw
sure
your
he's necessarily.
morals out the window.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's necessarily optimal. And you do have to basically say, well, in that case, I'm not going to be going Path of the Warrior, because Twin Blades doesn't actually specifically say you need to use them at any point. They're just a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, I have had one with Twin Blades go down Path of the Warrior, and he ends up using a big two-handed sword because then he looks like a proper sort of ranger type. He's slaying all these evil goblins, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's just awesome, isn't it? So yeah, just because you've got the twin blades and gives you the extra attack doesn't mean you're actually using the twin blades
No.
for that attack. So yeah, yeah, true, makes sense. Um, so in terms of what you're doing, the leader and 2 sergeants is absolutely defined.
Yeah.
But what's the route you've taken yours down typically?
So I have had, I've done a fair few kind of companies out in the past because they are my favorite evil company. Um, I normally have my leader on some kind of big fighting path. So warrior is quite nice. Duelist is quite nice because you can make any kind of special strike, for example, meaning you basically you can use axe rules without having to buy an axe, which is just really nice. Obviously, they can strike as well. Skirmisher, as you've obviously mentioned yourself, you like skirmisher. I know you do. I've done that. My sergeant normally with twin blades. I've done sorcerer a few times for same reasons. Did it on the Shire, and I would also advise this on any model who's got 2 attacks starting. You basically can ignore that slight problem of them only having the wounds that they can roll rather than attacks,
Hmm.
so you can still have them as quite a fighty model.
Yeah.
And then with the archer, watcher, probably ranger or sharpshooter. Um, Mostly because you can't get a horse in Karna, which does mean that the knight is off the table.
Mhm.
This is slightly unfortunate, but we did want to make it so some companies just can't do certain things for theme reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because of that, yeah, ranger or sharpshooter probably for the archer one.
Yes, I just loaded up Battles Company's manager whilst we were chatting there, just to see or remind myself what I've got mine set up as. So my got Twin Blades as my leader, and he's on par with a skirmisher, and that's mainly because the idea of him being able to be around a corner, have the fell sight rule, and then throwing daggers. So he's around the corner, runs around, doesn't need line of sight to charge, throwing dagger someone in the absolute face, kills them, then charges into the next person with a couple of attacks. I was like, yeah, that just sounds really cool.
It is
Um,
really cool.
yeah, my poisoned arrow guy, I put him on Watchman.
That
I
makes sense as well. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and yeah, having the sound the alarm thing that has saved me on more than a couple of occasions, and um, getting the extra movement is cool as well. And then
Mm.
finally, uh, my other twin blade guy is on par for the duelist, and he's pretty gnarly. I mean, so I was looking at his stats now. He's got 3 attacks and 2 wounds. Then he's
Which
got
can easily achieve quite a lot. Yeah.
and then blade master and parry. So
Yes.
he's
Yeah.
nasty.
Kana are quite good in that regard. They can quite easily sort of rotate up.
And the fact that you've got, I mean, the other thing we've not mentioned as well is that the Haradrim wards with spears means that if you've got your twin blade guy supported by a spear attack guy, you know,
That's 3 attacks in one combat, though.
three attacks in one combat, like only taking it 1 base whip, um, and that's game 1.
Yeah.
It's not game 6 where you got to get a few
No,
bits of
that's you've
influence.
just started. You can do this immediately. Yes, that's quite powerful, and it's not to be underlooked. or underrated, I would say.
Yeah, I think any of the models, and there aren't very many of them that have got two attacks to begin with, are the progression can be very, very quick because you're likely to win a bunch of combats, and combats win games more often than not. So um, yeah, they are useful. I think that moving forwards with them, the first path I put my first here in the making on was a path for the general, because I do think that, I mean, you've got fight 4, but mostly they're going to be fight 3. So having the possibility of inspiring presence to do some
For that,
re-rolls.
yeah, for that
Yeah,
banner is very powerful. Yeah, no, I
yeah,
I, I get that. General, as rule of thumb, is pretty powerful. And yeah, as you say, banners are almost non-existent in Battle Company, so having that access to it, very nice.
yeah.
Um,
So there's a company that is a really fun to play with. I mean, you're going to struggle to get the official models, but there are some really nice 3D prints out there,
mm,
which I've got a bunch of, and they just look like ninjas. And yeah,
that's honestly, that sounds great. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll chuck some photos on the Discord or something, and you can have a look at them. But they are, yeah. I'm not the greatest painter in the world, but sometimes the model is go, yeah, I'm not the best painter, but that either way,
That
that
model
model
is
is
so
awesome.
good. Yeah, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter so much. Um, so what would you say is the kind of big um what are the big disadvantages with them? And because we've spoken about a lot about the double attacks, I mean, the disadvantages, uh, defense is obviously not great. Is there anything else
Obviously,
about them?
they are quite flimsy. Because they don't have any access to a mount of any kind. The absolute most, like, if you want some movement advantage, you need to buy like either a war drum, use heroic march, take watchman. There aren't many ways you're going to get movement in that company, so you do have to worry about speed. It's similar to Shire. Yes, they are quite fun, but you are going to be a bit slow. Other than that, I would say the major disadvantage they've got is that, i- in spite of them being so low defense, they are only 15 models strong at max, like any other company.
Mhm.
And you are realistically only going to be strength 4 with any model. Like anything like a dwarf company, they are going to wall them They can wall them a lot easier than another company, and they'll kill them quite quickly because that isn't very high. And with and since they've got regular influence chart, recovering casualties is not necessarily something you want to be doing all the time.
Yeah, I'm not nodding along with you there, because I've been playing pickup games against my friend's Durin's folk company, and
Yeah,
that has been tough. It's just like
I can
I'm
imagine. Yeah,
I need a 6 every time I want to wound. Like, it's never a 5. It's always a 6. So,
yeah,
and sometimes it's a 6 and a 4. It's just like, Jesus Christ. I did have a joyous moment when my leader did throwing dagger someone to death, who was defense 8. So I was just like, just had to happen
lovely.
eventually. Law of averages had to happen eventually. And then I think he charged into the person behind him and then killed him uh, in a combat. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was
Uh,
satisfying. But in general, it's just like, yeah, I've basically been tabled and you've lost about 3 models, because 6s are going to come up 1 in 6, surprisingly.
yeah,
So if you need a 6 to wound, uh,
it's not as easy as say if you need a 5 to wound or maybe even a 4 to wound in those certain instances where that's going to come up. Yeah, no, it is
yeah,
definitely they're flimsy.
yeah. So I think that when you come up against high, they're going to struggle against high defense companies. Um, and because if they do lose a combat, you know, if they win a combat, they're going to struggle to wound. Like, and if they lose a combat, then you know, strength 3 on defense 3, force to wound. That's
Yeah,
played.
not ideal.
Not ideal. So yeah, but really, really fun to play with in my experience, and just from the imagining I'm playing with ninjas point of view. And what's your view on poisoned weapons? Because the poison bow, like poison gives you chance to
So
reroll once.
my view on that is because the bow automatically comes with poisoned arrows. You can actually buy blade poison as your equipment slot, and it won't actually that will use up your small equipment, but you don't need to have the backpack for it, which would normally be
Mm,
necessary if you wanted both blade and arrow. I
yeah.
do think it's very useful on evil in general, but especially with Karna, they don't really want to be making feint rolls, which is the other way you could gain that.
Mm,
And again, rerolling ones if you need sixes, well, that's actually pretty important. You've got a much better chance of wounding if you've got two dice to wound. You need a six. Well, okay, I might only be able to wound on a six, but I have a 1 in 6 chance of getting a one, which gives me the reroll.
yeah. Yeah, it takes it from like a 1 and a 6 to a 2 and 11, doesn't it? So
It's
it,
something
it-
quite good, and that's per dice, obviously. So
yeah,
it can the growth on that can be quite good.
yeah. So just nudges in the right direction. How important do you think the use of terror is as taking like in terms of taking the company specific upgrade? How important is like what at what point are you going? You know what? I want terror.
I think it depends on what other companies are in your campaigns, to be honest.
Yeah,
So if you're taking on Goblin Town or Moria or anything which is mostly Courage 2, Terra's great. It really is, because Courage 2 into Terra, we need an 8 plus to charge them. But if
yeah,
you're facing elves, it's not worth taking,
yeah,
because elves are Courage 5. Yes, they will fail the odd roll, but unless, of course, you haven't got anything better to take, and it does need to be a special roll you've rolled to swap it out, you're often better off just taking that roll, whatever it is. And some things on the charts just much better. Parry, parry's a lot better. Obviously, it's the
hmm
sort of thing I'd probably take if I'd rolled. I guess if I rolled a seven again after getting a seven on the chart, it wouldn't matter what chart it was. But anything where I couldn't get that a reward again, so I
yeah,
guess I guess deadly strength on warrior, for example, then maybe I'd take terror, but I would equally be inclined to just re-roll to see what I got on my reinforcement. Like, not my reinforcement, my progression,
yeah,
because an extra attack there probably better than terror against most companies.
yeah. I think that yeah, the idea of facing if you knew you had like a low courage company um and in your group and you have a someone who's doing a melody of despair getting,
Yeah, yeah.
getting on
If you've got
courage
a
one.
minstrel,
Yeah,
if you've got a minstrel, that's a really good combination. And to be honest, I hadn't really thought of that, so that one might be something I use in the future. More proof that even us in charge of making the community edition, we're always learning new things as we go on. So yeah, that could be quite a good use of it.
yeah. I think that I tell you what, this is ridiculous, but I really love the idea, and I looked it up. This is going back like 9 months maybe. I really like the idea of in my Dolgador company having a warg that was a minstrel,
I
and then
mean,
just
it's not
yeah,
legal, but it sounds great.
that's like just the imagery of him howling like beautiful songs that inspired the people around him to have a have another role in the dual role, or terrify the oncoming troops. But no, wargs are not allowed to do that. Okay, so Karna, give me a rating. Give me a rating out of 10. I mean, and kind of also kind of talking about the idea of where they are in terms of beginner, intermediate, advanced as well.
Yeah, so I'd probably say they're probably a solid 7 out of 10 in terms of power. Um, you are going to be stuck eventually coming up against walls. There's just nothing you can really do about that. But
Mhm.
other than that, especially when you're starting out, when the company's starting out rather, having a couple of two attack models is killer compared to most other companies, that is a major advantage. So if you get lucky, your first few games you can progress quite quickly.
Yeah,
As for whether or not I'd say they're easy, intermediate, or hard to pick up and play, probably intermediate. You, it's not as simple as just having a stat line like a dwarf and just being able to plonk him on the board. Okay, he's fight 4, he's defense 7, he can take a lot of strikes. He doesn't have to
yeah,
worry about much. But it's not as difficult as running something like Goblin Town, Shire sort of thing.
yeah.
You're pretty easy. If this is your first company, you can quite easily learn everything. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Okay, yeah. I think I'm in pretty solid agreement with all of that. I think that 7 is a perfectly accurate score, and I think they're not an exactly a beginner company, but they're also not really tricky as well. So they are kind of intermediate. Um, I think so. So yeah, I think that covers about everything that I wanted to cover with you in terms of speaking about the community rules in general, talking about your couple of favorite companies. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited to hear about what's going to happen next. Whether there are going to be any tweaks to hero paths, whether
As I
they're
say, if someone out there wants to help join in, we're more than happy for you to jump into the Discord channel, which I know is linked in every episode.
yeah,
All you've got to do is just offer up like some feedback on things. Just say you've been using community. Well, you don't even have to say you've been using Community Edition, although we do like to hear about it. Anyone's welcome to join the team. Welcome to if you join the playtest teams. The more people join in, the more we can learn. The more we can learn, the more we can help people get more out of the system.
yeah. And I just think it's really, really awesome what you guys have done. You've taken something which was a very solid idea to begin with, the GW or whoever it was that came up with, um, and you've just made it so much more fun, so much more balanced, and yeah, me and my group couldn't be happier that the rules were stumbled across by one of our members. So yeah, we take our hats off to you, and yeah, love what you do. So thank you very much.
That's very welcome. We're more than happy to help out in any way. As I say, if anyone has any feedback they need, even if it's just stuff they would like to know, question and answer sort of thing, just feel free to hit us up on the Discord. Again, me and Kami, Mia Thras, another one of our major heads of development, we're all spend quite a lot of time on there. More than happy to answer any questions. So
Yeah, well, love how kind of open you are to kind of constructive criticism and feedback and everything. And I will be having a chat with Commie very soon for another episode. I hear he's jealous that he didn't get to come on first, but if you will live in a different country, then it's going to be more difficult. So it's, he's only got himself to blame.
yeah, fair.
All right. Well, can't thank you enough for coming on. Really appreciate your time and your insight. You've definitely inspired me to think about the Shire differently. And just there's a few things you've said about in terms of equipment and combinations of things have really, really got my brain whirring. And I don't know if like other people who've done the community rules on this, but sometimes I just open up the community rules on my phone and just have a little read and go, what have I missed? What
Don't worry.
combination?
Don't worry. We do this. Like we're still looking at it, going, "Hang on a sec. That works with this. This works with that. Oh, that's great. Oh, we'll try this next time."
Yeah,
I mean, I've put a poll out on the I'm doing a poll on the group to say what company am I going to be using next in next playtesting. Just so I'm going to put a few things out there, just because I want to test some new combinations of stuff. So yeah, don't worry. You're not alone in that sort of thing.
well, it's a great resource. Really glad that you guys have put your time and effort and energy into all of it. So yeah, there's obviously a link in the show notes to uh, find where to download that. And yeah, just throw away the old rulebook because vanilla and unbalanced. But we said that enough already.
I
Anyway,
don't know. I'd keep it for now until until we finally finish out how fix map campaigns. It's like
just
the one thing in there we haven't touched yet, so keep it for now. But
yeah, keep it
once
like
that's once that's
yeah.
resolved, yeah, by all means, get rid of it.
Unless you need like a table leveling quite severely. Stick it under a table leg. Right. Well, anyway, thanks everyone for listening to the Good Enough Battles Company podcast. My name's Chris Piercy from Good Enough Scenery. And if you'd like scenery for your board, which is good enough, then head to goodenoughscenery.com. Thanks for joining us today, Val, and we'll catch everyone for another episode soon.